All right, welcome back to the podcast. If you haven't found us, you can find us on all the platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. So this is our new format, Colton. So I'm excited to have you in studio, bro.
It's looking good, man. It's got the whole setup.
Exactly right. So anything that we mention in today's show or future shows, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, all of the resources are going to be in the description underneath this video. So just expand that, and anything we mention with lead sources or resources that you need, you can find them there. So make sure if you like this show, give us some love. Just
tell someone about it.
Tell someone about it, or do all the stuff, like the show, subscribe, all the stuff. I don't know. That's like your world, Colton. That's like all your people.
Yeah, they got to get in it.
Yeah, your generation. So the new format today is going to be pretty cool. We're going to take questions from my Instagram and my YouTube channel, and we're going to address them. We're going to answer them live. So if you want to participate in that, feel free. Just go find me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, send me any question that you have, or just comment on our videos on YouTube.
Yep. And
we will unpack them. So let's get right into it, my friend. What is the first question we got, Colton?
Cool. All right. So first question is from Goddess Gold, and he or she asked, just got licensed last week, and I want to make $60,000 by the end of the year. And we're filming this in September right now. So the end of the year, is that possible?
All right. So 60,000. So what does that break out to be per month? So we got. It's absolutely possible, right? I mean, people are making 100,000 a month.
Yeah.
So to make 60, you've got the rest of September, October, November, December. So you have really 3.5, 4 months.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let's break down the math, Colton, so we can give this person the same advice we would give agents that we coach all the time in our coaching program. And so I'm going to break down the blueprint for you, and you'll know exactly what to do. So 60,000. The only thing we don't have is their average commission.
Yeah, let's assume that it's a $250,000 house with a 2.5% commission.
Yeah,
maybe
so
split.
I think 250,000 is good. So at 2.5%. So let's just say average commission of $6,000.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
All right. So you need to get 10 deals between now and the end of the year. So if you're listening to this or you're watching the replay on YouTube, you can take notes. I'm going to give this person the blueprint. It's the same blueprint we give to an agent that we coach, so they know exactly what to do. All right, so we're going to take the end result, Colton, right, of 10 deals, and we're going to back into the math.
Yep.
So if they need 10 deals, we got to figure out, okay, how many contracts do they need? So in our experience, we see about an average 70% pull-through rate. Yep. Right. So if someone lists a house or they write an offer on a house, 70% on average will close.
Yeah. And in this market, it might be a little bit high, but you don't want to pretend like it's always going to be like this.
That's true.
So I think 70% is pretty conservative, and it gives you a real idea.
And that's a good point. When you're building a plan or a blueprint or a business plan, it's like, why don't you go conservative?
Yeah. Almost, or even like, so a lot of times when we talk about with our agents is you should have a few different scenarios, like best case, worst case, and most likely case.
Yeah.
But for now, for this purpose, I think 70% is fair.
Yeah. So if we take 10 deals that we need to close between now and the end of the year, and we divide that by 0.7, that gets you to 14 closed deals. 14 contracts is what's needed.
Right.
So if we keep going further back in the blueprint, if we need 14 contracts, we have to go meet with some people to get those contracts, right?
Yep.
So again, these are all averages. You watching this or listening to this, you might be better. And if you're better, great. But we're looking at worst case scenarios. So 14 contracts signed. We look at a 50% close rate. So we just divide that by or times that by 2, which results in 28 listing appointments. Let's just base this on listings.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if you want to go work with buyers, feel free. I think that the longer you stay in this business, the less and less patient you become to work with buyers because of what's needed. Mm-hmm. So let's base this on listings.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so you need 28 listing appointments. Is that what we said?
Yes.
All right, so in order to get 28 listing appointments, what we're seeing is, it depends if you're a new agent. I'm assuming this is a brand new agent. Is that the question?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it is. Yep. They got licensed last week.
Oh, so brand new agent. So you don't have a database. You have no pipeline. You have all of your contacts are probably going to be first contacts.
Yeah.
New contacts. So it's going to be 100 to 1. That's the ratio. So if you need 28 appointments, you're going to just times that by 100, because on average, it takes 100 conversations to set one listing appointment. If you're a brand new agent, right? The more skillful you become, the bigger your database. Go ahead.
Now that's assuming every appointment shows up. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So you could do it based on that. Probably,
you're right.
If you set 28 or 30, or you might not get on all of those.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's look at that. So 28 appointments you need to get on, and so you probably, I would say, it's probably a 70% capped ratio.
Yep, I would, especially being newer. That's to be safe, 70%.
All right, so that means you need 40. Thank you for that. Yeah, good catch. So 40 appointments set is the goal between now and the end of the year.
Yep.
And that's the number we have to multiply by 100. So it's really 4,000 conversations, right? So if we take that 4,000 conversations, I always like to use 22 working business days per month. So between now and the end of the year, you have October, November, December, 3 full months, and then probably 12 days left in September. So what do we have? You got 22 times 3 plus 12. So 78 days, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so 78 days. How many contacts do we need?
4,000, did we say?
Yeah.
40 appointments set, 10 to 1. Yeah.
Divided by how many days?
22?
No.
4,000. Sorry.
No. 4,000 divided by how many days are left in the year?
So we got 78, we said?
Yeah. So 4,000 divided by 78. 50 contacts a day. So there you go. It's so funny.
It's kind of what you preach.
It's what I preach.
No matter what.
Dude, 50 contacts a day, you can hit any income goal that you want.
Definitely.
Because 50 contacts a day, when that compounds year over year, the thing is, Colton, the ratios change, right? So year one, when you're out there prospecting, making outbound calls, the thing that I think agents get caught up on is, this is why tracking your numbers is so freaking important.
Huge.
It's massive. So in the beginning, when you talk to a new person you don't have any relationship with, that's why it takes 100 of those conversations to set one appointment.
Yep.
And then an agent that, here's a good example. So on our coaching call last week, agent's been with us for 5 years. They're, and he actually came up and visited us in Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
He's down to 18.
Yeah.
18 contacts to set one listing appointment.
Yep.
But for someone who's brand new in the business, it's going to be more like 100.
Yeah.
So 50 contacts a day will help you get to your goal of $60,000 in income.
Yep.
And you just have to unpack that little baby blueprint we just gave you to make that happen.
Yep. Great question.
Yeah, great question. What's next?
Did you want to go off one on Instagram, or do you want me to give one here on YouTube?
Yeah, so let's see here. Forget who asked this, because we have so many questions. Again, feel free. It's all good. I want you guys to continue to ask questions on Instagram. It's really no issue. But one of the questions is, and I can't find who said this right now, but was like, essentially, how do you define a contact?
Oh, okay.
Right? Because we just talked about 50 contacts.
Yep.
So this is actually a good question, good segue. A contact is really a conversation with a homeowner who is looking to, it's a contact with the person who owns the home.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't control whether or not they're
ready to move.
That's right. You have no control over that. Okay.
Right.
So it's an actual conversation, though. It's not you call a old expired listing and it's a wrong number. That's not a contact.
Right. Now, question: would you define a contact? Someone picks up the phone and they say, "Well, yeah, thanks for calling, but I'm not interested in selling." Click. They hang up in 5 or 10 seconds. Would you consider that a contact?
No.
Okay. Why?
Yeah, I think it's because there's no conversation.
There you go.
So really, it's conversations. You know, it's that doesn't yield you any type of opportunity. So I look at how we define a contact is a conversation about selling their house. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get the appointment or generate a lead or anything like that.
Right.
But it does mean you actually had a conversation.
Well, and also playing into what you talk about with like the law of averages, like with the roulette table, right? Like that thing, that the way the roulette table gets its averages is because it's spinning 24/7 nonstop. And so to your point, these contacts, I mean, you might get, an hour worth of 4 appointments set.
Yeah.
And you've only made 10 contacts.
That's a good point.
Right? But it's because even if it is that person who hangs up on you, it's because your dialing is going to read those opportunities.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know?
So how we define that is by, again, having now the conversation, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The conversation doesn't have to be over the phone. It could be at the door. It could be through Messenger on Instagram.
Yeah.
It could be a text message.
Right.
That's the other thing is like people that follow the work that we do feel
Yeah.
like, oh, you're just the cold call people. You know what I mean? It's like,
Can I tell a quick story about
Absolutely.
that? So last year, one of our agents reached out to me. She had made a post in our Facebook group, and she said, "Hey, I've been here for a few months. I haven't posted anything, but I've been listing about 2 or 3 houses every month the last few months in a row." And 6 months later, she calls me out of the blue. She's like, "Colton, I've got a problem." I'm like, "What's the problem? What's going on?" She's like, "I'm afraid to call." I'm like, "Wait, I thought you're doing 2 or 3 listings a month." She's like, "I am. I'm just texting people. I've been texting all these people. I haven't made a single call." So to your point, contacts can go in more ways than talking on the phone.
Yeah, and I think it's like how we position the conversation.
Yeah.
How you deliver the scripts, right?
Yes.
It's not the scripts in it, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Right. Yeah.
But you can utilize that strategy through various contact methods.
Yep.
So that's how we define a contact. It's a real conversation with somebody.
Right. That's good.
I want to get onto this one too. So this is a question from Houses by Harry on Instagram. He said, "All right, so been doing 40 contacts a day for a long while. I get them pretty quickly with sources likely to sell, but I've noticed with absentee owners, it takes me another 1 to 2 hours to log the same amount of contacts." Okay, I'm with you so far. So I was thinking about decreasing my contact quota for absentees down to 30, but only for that source, and maintaining my 40 quota a day. Let me just think. So would it be reasonable, or am I just being weak? What's your opinion? Okay, so this was another question that we got on YouTube. I can't remember, but it's under the same context. And what I mean by this is like, I think people get into like making these outbound phone calls and losing sight of the purpose. Everyone's talking about contacts and all these different things. So there's really only 2 things you should be focused on when you are prospecting.
Yeah.
One is starting and stopping the same time every single day, right? So that's something you can control, because we talk about all the time detaching
Right.
from the outcome.
Yeah.
Well, contacts are an outcome. You could call for 4 hours and have 40 contacts, or you could call for 4 hours and have 20. You really don't have any control over that per se.
Right.
So one is, I think, we look at conversations, Colton, like when we look at an agent that's maybe that we coach, and we look at the ratios contacts come into play.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, we have to create a world that's controllable, which is the amount of time you spend prospecting.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree, and I think there is a difference between looking at that number of, okay, how many contacts per hour am I making? There's a difference of looking at that from a perspective of, okay, do I have a good list?
Yeah.
Right? And if you're, if we talk about 10%, contact rate per hour, right?
Yep.
And it's 2% and it's been 2%, well, maybe we look at the lead source, but looking at it over, like you're saying, over a long period of time, you can't control what that's going to be always.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. We can get into, I think everyone always has questions about sources. There's probably some questions.
That's the next question, actually.
So let's hold off for that for 1 second. So number one, focus when you're prospecting is the importance of time blocking.
Yep.
Right? Because that's the only thing we can control. You can control if you prospect for 60 minutes or 90 minutes or an hour. We can't control how many people that day pick up the phone.
Correct.
So that's number one. And then number two, we have to look at, okay, what is the focus? What is the purpose of the phone call? I think people are massively missing this.
Yeah.
And it's to set appointments. That's why you're making the call.
Right. Yeah.
So again, there's another question that came up. I don't know where it was, but it was such a good question about, I'm generating 2 or 3 leads a day. That's exactly what it was. So I've been focused on, if I get my 2 or 3 leads per day, I don't make 40 contacts. If I don't get my leads, okay.
That's okay. Yeah,
so that's what we're talking about, right?
This is from Foods of Fitness on YouTube.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So this was to answer that question. It's not about. It's looking at the wrong 2 things. It's not about contacts or leads.
Right.
It's about time prospected and appointments set.
Right.
Contacts and leads are a byproduct of the action.
Yes.
That's the key takeaway.
Yes.
So we need to focus on, okay, how many hours a day do I prospect?
Yep.
And during that time, my focus 100% is on setting appointments.
Right.
And only if I don't get the appointment does a lead happen.
Yeah.
And that's another show, like how do we define a lead? And then if I don't generate a lead, then you ended up with X amount of conversations.
And that goes back into the law of averages. You might have a good, let's say your goal for the month is to set 10 appointments and to take 5 listings.
Yeah.
Well, week 1, you might set 7 appointments, but you stop there because you might get certain number of leads based on that guy's goal of, well, I only want 2 leads per day or whatever.
Right.
But then that doesn't play into the outcome we're going for, which is to get listings. And to get listings, we got to get appointments.
That's exactly
so if you
right.
stop before you hit those outcomes that we can focus, you're not going to always hit your goal.
Yeah. And then so if you take that even a step further, then the question is, well, okay, cool. So if my goal is to set, let's just say 1 listing appointment per day,
Mm-hmm.
if I make 1 contact and set 1 listing appointment, should I stop? Well, no, because you forgot the first rule. The first rule was you start and stop prospecting the same time every day.
Yep. And
Right?
that's why someone like you has had the success you've had, because you understand what your goals are and you understand the law of averages. You might be in a season where you're getting a lot of contacts and appointments, but at the end of the month, it might be different. And then that end of the month is going to play into next month.
Yeah. Well, and it goes against our core philosophy that we talk about all the time in our program, which is like detach from the outcome.
Yeah, huge.
So if you got the appointment and you stopped doing the activity that got you that appointment,
Yeah.
you're totally attached to the outcome.
Right.
I understand the mindset of
Sure.
why someone thinks that, but the goal is to create a habit every single
Yep.
day. And it's a habit of prospecting for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours per day, and obsessing and focusing on that,
Yep.
and then letting the outcomes occur.
Yep. And through that, it kind of goes into what you teach of the triangle of success.
Yeah.
Mindset, skills, and activity.
Yeah.
Well, through that activity, you're going to develop the confidence in your mindset and get better at skills. And that's why Joe, you had mentioned, is down to 18 contacts, not only through the time he's compounded, but he's developed the right skills from doing that. And so
Yeah. So let's get into the next question.
So that plays off well of talking about, all right, contacts, right? Who do I got now? Who do I have to contact, right? So
Yeah.
Jalen Jones asks on YouTube, where can I get my prospects from?
All right. So great question. So, what we believe in, and what we really teach is an agent should have at least a minimum of 3 sources of business, 3 sources of leads, and no more than 5.
Yep.
Right. That's what we teach. Now, I think that when you talk about sources, and I think the question specifically is where, we'll give that advice in just a second. Again, everything we're talking about, all of the resources we talk about, if you're watching this replay on YouTube, they're all in the description. So you can just look for everything that we're talking about. So sources of business, I think that we have to look at two. If you start at the top, right? You've got people you know and people you don't know.
Yep.
And then when you unpack those 2 sources of business, you've got, okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit more. Well, you have your top 100. This is something that we teach, right? These are your closest people and how to communicate. I think that's got to be at the top of your lead generation strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And then next down the list is like, okay, well, what's the lowest source of new listings with people I don't know? Yeah. Well, certainly for sale by owners and expired listings, right? That's a no-brainer. Whether you like them or not, whether you suck at them or not, that's a byproduct. You've got to have them in your business plan.
Right.
Then I think an agent has to pick a niche, and nobody in our industry talks about picking a niche. No. And then you have to have a long-term strategy, right? So if you take all of those approaches, I think you have to have a strategy for going after people that you know without being the annoying, like begging for business, because no one's going to do that. That's why most agents don't communicate with their sphere.
Right.
So you got to have a strategy for that. Then you have to have a strategy for low-hanging fruit, right? Then you have to have a strategy around a specific niche, like your superpower, right?
Yeah.
That nobody can compete with you in the marketplace.
Right.
And you're like the obvious choice. You are the expert in that specific niche. And then I would have a strategy around long-term nurture business. And then lastly, to round it out with number 5 is I would have a referral partner team.
Yeah.
So if you have all 5 of those sources of business, I think it sets you up to have a successful business regardless of what the market's doing.
Yeah. It's great. It's
right.
great.
Now, when you get into the, okay, well, where do I get those sources? we believe that Vulcan 7 is probably the best source of new listing leads that you can get. That'd be one source that you can go to. There's a link to that in the description. You can go to a list broker like a share group, right? They can help you with any type of niche that an agent's going to go after. Again, link in the description. Everything we mentioned is going to be in the description. Linked up. And then so with those two sources of business, and then I think using your resources. Like if you're gonna let's just say someone's gonna specialize in going after, let's just say, probate attorneys. Okay. Yep. I mean, all of their information is public.
Yeah.
But I think what people are asking is like, where do I get the listing leads from? I would say Vulcan 7 and then the share group would be my two recommendations. Would you think that anything we're missing there, you think?
No, maybe before we kind of wrap things up here, just give a couple of examples of, like you said, because nobody talks about this, and I'm sure we'll have episodes where we go deep on one or two,
right.
But what kind of niches? What do you mean by niche?
Yeah, great question. Yeah. So like when we talk about niches, we're talking about, I think when people get into real estate, they look at it from the beginning of like, well, I help people. Right. I help people buy and sell houses. Okay, beautiful. That's never going to go away.
Right.
But if you're trying to be all things to all people, you end up like attracting nobody.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So if like in marketing 101, if you try to like, well, who's your target audience? Everybody in the world.
Yeah.
Well, then the real answer is nobody. Right. Because you're in like this huge sea of people, of realtors. We got way too many of them as it sits right now. And you don't know how to attract your ideal customer, your ideal client rather, because you don't have any specialty. So as an example of that, right? So let's just pretend you niche down and you become a divorce real estate specialist as an example. Well, now when you start making content out there, when you start building relationships with people with this specialty, you become the go-to person in your market for anybody and all people that are going through a divorce.
Yep.
I believe, Colton, that an agent, if they specialize in something, they'll get more business, not less. The reason why agents tell me I don't want to niche down, Brandon, because they have like this scarcity. You got it.
Yeah.
Scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if I just niche down, won't I be losing opportunities? Well, we're not talking about saying no to opportunities. We're talking about attracting more people. Like if you were the divorce real estate specialist in your city, and let's just call there's 5,000-10,000 divorces a month in your city. Do it. Yeah, go ahead. What do you want to add?
Well, no, and I was going to say, and I think the point behind that too is like, you're that guy or gal to those people.
Right.
It's like what you've done with the FSBO backup plan. We talk about this all the time in our coaching. It's like, what is the FSBO backup plan? It's just a plan to list their house, but we're cutting through the noise.
That's right. Great point.
So it's like if you're the divorce, it doesn't mean that's all you do, right? You're that girl or guy to those people.
That's such a good point. You know, it's like, that's why we recommend you have a for sale by owner backup plan, or you have an absentee owner.
Doesn't mean you only list for sale by owner.
That's right. But when you're communicating with the for sale by owner and you have a for sale by owner backup plan, it makes you the for sale by owner specialist.
Yes.
Right? You just become a lot more appealing to people. So that's what we mean by picking a niche. So let's just wrap this episode up. And so for any of you that have questions, this is the new format. So once a week, Colt and I will come into the studio, unpack your questions in great detail. So if you have them, two places you can make that happen. One, YouTube, just comment on any of our videos. Two, Instagram, find me, follow me, and then send me a direct message. We'll unpack that on the show. And if you got any value, like Colton said, share the show, right? You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube replays. And I think that's it for today.
That's all, man. Good show.
Cool, brother. Good show.
See you guys next week.
We'll see you guys next week.